So, welcome to the ADEIL December webinar. ADEIL is the Association for Distance Education and Independent Learning. It is a professional association for anyone who is engaged in or interested in the distance education. And the goal of the organization is to provide professional development opportunities as well as opportunities for collegiality and interaction. One of the main ways we fulfill this is through our ADEIL annual conference, which takes place in the fall, and through these webinars. Dr. Lauer is going to put a link in the chat if you are interested in joining ADEIL, and we would love to have you. So welcome to our December webinar. My name is Dr. Teresa Leary Handy, and I'm here with the rest of the Gen 101 Open Educational Resource Pilot Project, Jennifer Dunn, Harla Frank, and Dr. Connie Lauer. And we are the interdisciplinary cross-departmental team from the University of Arizona Global Campus that work together on this project, the Living Textbook, Open Educational Resources for Engagement, Equity, and Inclusion.
And now in this study, we wanted to address potential barriers to non-traditional student success. This project was our attempt to empower our students. We wanted students to become more confident in this entry point course by helping them to understand the materials with supplemental resources. We wanted them to engage more with university created resources and to help them learn that not knowing is okay and that asking for help is not a sign of weakness. We wanted our faculty to have branded resources to provide students with additional learning and practice opportunities. We wanted to deepen engagement between faculty and students, and we wanted to normalize students' feelings as new students and increase their sense of belonging and inclusion at our institution. We wanted to do all of this in an affordable way, rooted in our commitment to making education accessible to all. So please let us know in the chat or with an emoji if this resonates with you and your work with students.
So as you all are sharing whether or not OER, Open Educational Resources, resonates with you in the chat, I also want to ask how many of you all know what OER stands for? You can use your emojis to say that you know what that is, and you can also look at the slide. OER stands for Open Educational Resources, and if you've used them in your courses, we'd love to have you share that in the chat as well. Open educational resources are openly licensed, freely available educational materials that can be modified and can be reused by users. They can include any type of educational resource from syllabi to full courses. We chose Open Educational Resources, OER, so that students could access these supportive materials outside the Gen 101 course throughout their academic and professional careers. We also wanted to make these OER available to faculty in all disciplines at our college by providing resources that they can use or customize them to meet their student needs. By providing these resources outside of the course curriculum, faculty were able to customize their use and offer these resources a la carte to students in announcements and through outreach communications from the university. Given the financial barriers faced by many college students, it was important that these resources be accessible outside the classroom and that they be offered for free to all students. In this study, we created and provided podcasts, infographics, articles, and more. Open educational resources can be any of these formats that you see on the screen, and there are many open educational resources many of these are in our pilot project. We did not complete the textbook or a course, but we are dreaming of what that looks like in our next steps. We were just recently awarded a second grant to continue the work that we're doing. Some of our most used assets were video, podcasts, and infographics that were found in the articles. For the Gen 101 OER project, we provided faculty-created and curated resources to foster inclusion and academic success in our Gen 101 course and to improve the student learning experience at our open access institution.
One of our challenges in an entry point course at an open access institution is that students enter at all different ages, stages, and levels of life and career experiences. So creating a course that is robust and rich in information can be a challenge. In addition, we found ourselves always looking for additional information to supplement the provided course materials. We wanted to create these resources so they were for the students we serve and not just internet resources. As we began to think about this, Dr. Handy, our program chair, attended a conference and realized that open educational resources are affordable and allow us to meet the needs of our specific students. The materials in the study are organized to support each week of the course. These are the themes for each week. We wanted faculty to use the OER repository of resources to support their instructional feedback and discussion responses and to provide any supplemental materials to students who had need of them.
The Gen 101 OER pilot project followed a traditional research study format. We identified the materials we would create based on institutional data from our assessment office, and we then submitted our study for an IRB approval. Next, we recruited faculty and the students who were participants by merely being enrolled in that course. Once we identified our faculty, we conducted an orientation, either in person or recorded. We then implemented the tools in the 15 courses that were selected and collected data and analyzed the data. Here are the research questions that we sought to answer in our research study. As we mentioned these already, they guided our work and they focused on the faculty and student experience.
Let's talk about how Gen 101 leveraged OER in the Gen 101 course. And you can access the OER resources that we created by scanning the QR code on your screen. Now, research demonstrates that students who experience a greater sense of belonging at their college tend to have higher motivation and more academic self-confidence and higher levels of academic engagement and achievement. So with this in mind, we sought to create faculty-created and curated resources to foster inclusion and academic success in our Gen 101 course. We wanted students to understand that faculty see and understand their non-academic challenges and barriers to success in the classroom as a way of destigmatizing these non-academic challenges while also establishing that critical social presence in the classroom that can help students become more academically successful and to feel more connected. Additionally, we wanted to provide resources to help students see the relevance of the Gen 101 course content for their academic work and how building SMART goals and conducting a SWOT analysis can help them to be successful in academics and in their future careers.
And I think this is the same QR code that you may have had in the last slide, but this is where our resources are located. One of our plans for the future is to have an actual OER repository as a university. And so we're working towards that, and we'll share a little bit about that later. But right now they're on this, the UAGC hub, which is a public-facing resource. One of our researchers is not present today, but these are the words that he expressed. He was with our student care office. Access to resources is an essential part of every student's academic success and can also be the barrier. This project provided us with the opportunity to support students who may not have access to the resources they need, as well as a culture that meets students where they are. Recognizing the unique needs of students and supporting their goals of obtaining their degree is truly at the heart of this project. And here are some of the resources that Matt was talking about. Matt shared that while not specific to Gen 101, many of these topics impacted learners on a daily basis. Topics such as challenges after incarceration, impacts related to substance abuse and misuse, and difficulty prioritizing mental health and wellness are common themes across students referred to the UAGC Student Advocate Helpline. Matt shared that this project provided him with an opportunity to bring information into an easy to use and free for access format that can be viewed on demand online or downloaded and saved for later. His hope is by making resources available in this format that learners and the general public will access the information they need, how and when they need it. Focusing on these topics also contributes to reducing stigmas. By inviting everyone to engage in the material and a discussion about the carceral system, alcohol and other drug use, and emotional and psychological well-being, we can work towards a culture that is inclusive and encouraging of accessing support in all forms. Too many people we find struggle silently, and Matt wanted to make a space for anyone to be heard and supported as they work to be the best version of themselves.
This project helped me to reach beyond supporting students academically and to reflect on how emotional responses to academic writing can influence student success. I was challenged to think about where these barriers intersected, develop supportive resources that I may have not have otherwise created had it not been for this OER project. Now, from a writing perspective, many of our students express that they are very anxious about writing in an academic environment. From my perspective, I thought it was important to destigmatize this anxiety about college level writing, particularly at the entry point level. Students receive a lot of writing instruction during their time at UAGC, and they have access to all of the resources in the Writing Center. They don't have information about the way they feel about writing, which has an impact on their motivation to complete their written work. Building students' self-confidence about their ability to learn to write helps students to feel like they belong in college. Now, this directly relates to our college's culture of care by meeting students where they are and providing the support they need to be successful. And in this case, providing encouraging support for students. Now, for this OER project, I researched and found several useful and relevant OERs about college writing anxiety on the Creative Commons Resource Hub. The resources that I found were all kind of text-based, and they seemed to be geared towards a traditional student population. I used some of the useful content from these resources as a base and remixed it and added a lot more content that would better meet the needs of our non-traditional student population. And after conferring with the team and drawing on research that Harla did about podcasts, I decided to make a video and podcast so that our busy students could listen to these supplemental materials if they were multitasking. They could listen while doing the dishes or driving to work or picking up their kids at school. And based on my research, video presentations with both audio and visuals are connected to increased engagement and recall. I aim to speak on the presentation in a welcoming and encouraging tone to further reassure students that they are understood and that they could overcome their fears of academic writing. Now, we created an HTML announcement so that instructors could post this information proactively in their courses for students and access this information. So what you're seeing on the screen here is an example of how instructors could use the college writing anxiety resource in week 3 of the Gen 101 course. Instructors could post this HTML announcement linking to the video, or they could provide a link to this resource via an outreach email as well. Addressing academic anxiety supports students' persistence in several ways. Offering a resource on writing anxiety destigmatizes fears of writing in an academic environment. Proactive support through course announcements allows instructors to get ahead of potential barriers as students begin their academic journey. This helps support student confidence, and confidence translates to engagement, motivation, and persistence. Students feel more confident when they are supported and understood by their academic team. Sharing resources provides an opportunity to form a connection and a rapport with students as well. The use of supportive OER helps faculty develop a sense of trust with their students, and instructors see them and are empathetic to their challenges as non-traditional students.
Open educational resources are, at their heart, created to establish an inclusive educational experience for those who may not be able to access educational resources due to a variety of reasons. This UAFP gave me the opportunity to engage with some highly skilled individuals in preparing OERs for our Gen 101 students, as well as students college-wide. My focus for this project was on pod and vodcasts and how they could be used to explain the concepts presented in the course, as well as to show the importance of a step-by-step approach to achieving one's goals, beginning in the very first college course. As you can see on the slide, there are some factoids about UAGC students. 25% of our students are active duty military or veterans. 70% are women. 61% have dependents, and 70% of our students are employed either full or part-time. So to quote a Star Trek film, time is truly the fire in which we burn and in which our students burn. So podcasts and vodcasts created to support student understanding of course concepts are excellent ways to provide students the flexibility of learning on the go because they can access these materials anywhere at any time. Students are no longer at the mercy of schedules that require them to sit at their computers to study. My focus was creating materials that allowed our students to study on their time rather than having to wait for time in front of the computer. Here are some of the pod and podcasts that were created. These were created to support the main topics in the Gen 101 course and to show students how they can use these tools from their very first course at UAGC to prepare for their career goals. The vodcast takes students through a comparison of a student who takes one course at a time without thinking about preparations for job interviews and her dream career, with a student who used the tools presented in Gen 101 to prepare him for his dream job from the very first UAGC course, Gen 101. As you can see from this slide, we have some early data. 76% strongly agreed that the materials increased their understanding of the course content. 14.7% agreed that it did. Only 2.94% disagreed, and 5.882 were neutral. So in order to make podcasts and vodcasts truly freely accessible, we consider learners who have been diagnosed with disabilities, such as hearing and vision challenges. In order to make podcasts accessible to those with hearing loss, we utilize vodcasts that include text on the screen. Basic and or interactive transcripts were also needed. Audio-only podcasts can also include live captioning with specific apps such as Live Caption on Google Pixel Android phones. Basic transcripts are scripts of the audio in the podcast or vodcast. Interactive transcripts actually highlight text as it is spoken, and users can select text in the transcript and go directly to that point in the video. For those with vision loss, descriptive transcripts allow a more immersive experience by describing settings, images, and diagrams in each scene. The audio in the vodcast or simple podcast can be a tool to make content available and meaningful to those with vision loss. Through these considerations, we feel that we upheld UAGC's culture of care and the principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion, making Gen 101 truly accessible to all.
Think for a second about being a first-time college student who is a parent and a job holder. Immediately, they are immersed into reading college material, navigating new technology, and completing assignments in a short period of time. It can be overwhelming for most of our Gen 101 students. Providing supplementary OER resources in the key areas of their concern, procrastination, time management, and preparing SMART goals, and having those available for use beyond the first class can help our students with their struggles and build a growth mindset for their future. Time management continues to be a pervasive concern for all students, but particularly for new non-traditional students who need to integrate college tasks and requirements with their full-time jobs and their home and family responsibilities. So an example of a student response we frequently receive when asking our students to reflect on their roadblocks at the end of Gen 101 is something like this. I have a 1.5-year-old daughter, and trying to attend school full-time and be a mother has been the most challenging part. I have had to work on my time management skills a lot while enrolled. I have learned that planning things out is very beneficial. For example, while my daughter naps during the day, I use that time to study or finish assignments. So over a period of several months, I surveyed students who successfully completed Gen 101 about their time management strategies and what advice they would pass on to their fellow students. So I analyzed those responses and I developed a PowerPoint blog which presented 11 strategies that were highly suggested by actual students. The hope was that knowing the suggestions came from fellow students would make the information more meaningful and relevant. And the next slide is about procrastination. So one of the top 3 student behaviors tied to time management is procrastination. Procrastinating on completing and submitting assignments can sink even the high potential students. Most students understand this, but need reminders and ideas for facing off procrastination and overcoming the ease of delaying work. All of us are guilty of procrastinating and can find enjoyable activities in the moment to delay doing what is most beneficial to us in the long term. So I developed an OER infographic that's a reminder to students to look ahead, plan ahead, and work ahead. There's also a link on that infographic to a great TED Talk by Tim Urban titled Inside the Mind of a Master Procrastinator. And since these resources are in our UAGC hub, students have access to them at any time. And when they feel the procrastination curse coming on, they can access the link and turn it around. And then the final creation and development of OER resource that I was involved in is a SMART goal assistive aid. In the first class they take at UAGC, we ask them, the students, to develop academic and professional SMART goals. And while the use of SMART goals is widespread in business and academic circles, most of our students have not encountered that concept. So we give students textual and video explanations of SMART goals, in addition to an interactive, which takes them through the steps to create SMART goals containing all the components they need. But despite this, there remains confusion for some students. So I created an academic SMART goals worksheet that gives specific examples of each component and then offers a space for students to follow suit with the components of their own goal. So the worksheet begins with the formation of a daily SMART goal, which is the easiest for students to understand, then invites them to extend their daily goal to the development of a SMART goal encompassing a week, and finally using the short-term examples to create a goal that covers a year. So having specific relevant SMART goal component examples and aligning their own personal SMART components with those examples takes them through the process step by step. So back to you, Teresa.
So to track the usage of the resources, we could only document the clicks. And so we can't tell you by whom, but we did learn a lot from knowing the frequency of the usage of the paper, of the documents. In the weeks where students have traditionally struggled, which is those early weeks, the weeks 1 through 3, there were more clicks on the resource pages for those assignments in those early weeks. There were more clicks for the time management resources. The top 3 pages with the most clicks were the procrastination infographic and video, the SMART Goals podcast, and the college writing anxiety resource, which is another podcast, and all are easy to review and use for our on-the-go mobile students. To help faculty share the resources, we provided template emails. We have something called signals, and they're easy to send those out in bulk. And we found that our faculty sent the first email the most. And as the weeks went on, they used the templates less. And one of the reasons the instructors and students both reported that there was a great deal of fatigue related to schoolwork and grading. So our instructors said that the OER materials facilitated a sense of belonging because through sharing those resources that were related to areas where students were struggling with, they found that the videos and resources helped students understand the material more, and they helped to normalize their experience, which is, in a lot of cases, students feel that they're the only ones having a certain experience. Another instructor stated that the OER materials provide diverse perspectives on a range of topics that can benefit students from a variety of backgrounds. And the materials were very accommodating for students from all walks of life, Additional feedback was that the instructors felt that students were more willing to give feedback on the materials in the beginning of the course, but as work piled on, they were less likely to respond. Overall, faculty reported that they felt supported with the resources, that they were easy to use, and they enjoyed the additional engagement. The findings are very positive for the small pilot study. One instructor reported that their student engagement was higher than in previous courses. Another instructor reported that their students were more proactive and successful at completing assignments than in previous courses. And students reported that they appreciated the care from their instructors that they found in receiving those additional resources. So over 66% of the students surveyed reported that the resources helped them understand their assignments better, and those same students reported that the materials were useful, informative, and increased their confidence in the course. And here's a graphic where you can see which ancillary materials were the most used. You see procrastination is in the orange, followed by college writing, and then the SMART Goals Week 3 activity. And here you see the graphic around the overall student experience, with the strongly agree being at the top, around resources being useful, informative, that the materials increase their understanding of the material in the course, that their confidence increased, as well as there was a stronger connection to the university. And we really feel that that's the most important. We hear that repeatedly in Gen 101, that students feel that the university is behind them. And the way that we do that is through embracing our students in the types of materials that we share with them. And that's why these OER ancillary materials are so important. Next slide. Once again, you see the confidence of the students after using the materials. And though you see at the bottom those five criteria. One is explaining my why for enrolling in college. That's our first week, where students are really understanding, the purpose and why they are attending college, not just because they want to go, but what is that deeper internal goal that you have for generational success, for career advancement, et cetera. We really want them to understand what resources are available to them. So we spend in week 2, we spend a lot of time helping them identify their support network. And in week 3, we work on those goals, SMART goals specifically. And that can really hiccup students sometimes. And so Dr. Lauer did a great job of creating a tool that helps students kind of unpack that activity. And then growth mindset and personal development plan, those are all really important for those next steps. Creating that mindset of growth and creating that personal development plan is the final assignment. And those writing tools that were created really are useful and helpful to students, because those 2 assignments do require additional writing that our students are not always accustomed to doing. Next slide. So what are the recommendations? If you are just starting in OER, it's important to think about how do you even begin, right? And so that can be a little overwhelming. So our recommendations for incorporating OER into the classroom to foster a sense of belonging and equity is to really just begin by sharing student experiences and their perspectives. Next, we suggest providing OER materials that are ancillary or supplemental. That's an easy way to begin to use open educational resources. And number 3, be selective, consider your student demographics. What do your students need specifically? I have been a part of a couple of initiatives around students who are formerly incarcerated. That is a need that, and military students. Those 2 populations are oftentimes entering the classroom with a lot of work-life experiences that impact their classroom experience, and it's important to bridge that for them. So know who you're teaching, know who you are trying to reach, and then think about how you can incorporate their experiences into the materials. For one of our courses, we've incorporated some graphic storylines that include a military student, a working mom, a dad who's transitioning to the workplace and trying to get a promotion. It's important that our students see themselves in the materials. In our OER project, we also used a lot of individual graphics and videos, and we really tried to address all the ways that students learn. Some of the institutional recommendations that we have are that support open access students who enter the online classroom with their little red wagons full of, challenges with these resources. One of the ways that Gen 101 OER Pilot Project did this was through the creation of materials that students could relate to and make those connections to. And we plan to extend our reach in our next phase, where we're going to continue building relationships with other partners in the university setting. Next. Those are our resources, and those are our contact information, and we are available for questions at this time.
Would you like to go back and look at those slides that we missed? We could reverse and just show the slides
Good.
on next. There you go. That's the time management blog video. And one of the suggestions from a student to use weekly checklists. And then the next slide is the procrastination infographic. Right.
Yeah, weekly checklists are so helpful for students. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from that, Connie. That's such a great suggestion. Just something like helping students organize. I mean, it's so useful and so helpful to students that we see them and their challenges. It's staying on task and staying organized with all of the things that they grapple with every day.
And that's such an important piece of the general education pathway coursework too. And in our Gen 101 course, we have a weekly checklist that is included as part of our course. So students can find that at the beginning of each week. And that's really beneficial. And what's really nice about creating these materials is that you can create materials and podcasts or vodcasts or infographics that really help your specific student. And that's what I love about and it's branded for your institution. And that's what I love about these resources, that we are able to create materials that are unique for our students, and we're not using things from the internet that we are pulling and that URL may break, and then you don't have a consistent, resource for your students to use because that URL is broken, and that then impacts the student's learning experience. So Evan said, Dr. Washington would like the QR code. If you can go to that slide with the QR code, that would be great. Do you present this to diversity groups on your campus? Because we are, we're 100% online, our connection to the different groups in our campus is through our faculty affairs events and things like that we do. And so, yes, we have shared this information with our faculty. But Evan, one of the things that we are going to do in 2025 is we have some actual faculty OER events that are happening to increase awareness around how to create, how to reuse, how to publish OER materials so that we can broaden our presence in this field. And so in this area, on these platforms, and so that our students can find our materials easily. So there's a whole, we've been working on that for about a month, and we're looking forward to next spring to share this with more faculty at our institution.
I have links to all of our OER resources that we've put on our hub. And when I'm writing discussion responses, when a student needs one of those, I will attach a link directly to my response so that they just can select that, and it'll take them to the resource.
Right. We really, really try to make and we try to what's the word I'm looking for? To kind of overlap how we share the information through announcements, through discussions, or through the email system that we have called Signals. And that way, and I sometimes will pull when I have a student saying there, I'm struggling with time management, or, they talk about being, procrastinators. I teach other courses as well. I will pull that resource from our hub and use it in another 101 class, like for social sciences, because that student might say, I'm struggling with my time management. I'm like, oh, you've got to watch this. Oh, writing is making me a little nervous. I don't know what my resources are. I can send them Jennifer's video. So it's important that we understand how these materials can broaden the reach to many students, not just our Gen 101 students. And that was really important to us. And our institution is 100% behind us creating these resources for our students, which is great to have. Oh, and the other thing is you don't have to be a faculty member to create these. And so Matt Galloway is not a faculty member, he's a staff person. And that's the beauty of OER, is that it gives voice to lots of people that have impact with students. So collaborating as we have with the Writing Center, with the Access and Wellness Office, we have Harla is an associate faculty, Connie and I are full-time faculty. We had such a great team working together on this, creating these tools, and all of our perspectives added to the richness of the materials that our students have access to.
It looks like Andre asked a question. He states in the chat, I support our faculty and would like to learn more about the resources available to them that benefit our students.
So, Andre, there are many different platforms for open educational resources. And I'll put some in the chat. There's something called Merlot, and there's something called Open OER Commons, and there's something called Pressbooks. Those are kind of your bigger names. You can find textbooks, you can find, worksheets, you can find articles, and there are other platforms as well, but those are kind of the three big ones that I'm most familiar with. And for people who are interested in understanding, like, how do you find these OpenStacks? Yes, that's a great one too, Harla. Thank you. How do you find? It's kind of like going into a huge Library of Congress online, right? So when you think about how big the Library of Congress is, so you have to have like a way to search. You have to have a way to vet. So it does require some time. And that's why we're having these events, Andre, in the spring, because we want to teach faculty and staff how to find these resources and how to do the deep dive. So and there are a lot of journals that are also open access as well.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I work for everyone else, I work for the faculty affairs team at UAGC as well. And before I made my way over to the faculty affairs team, I worked in the reentry team, and it was right around the COVID time. So I'm calling these students to come back to school who had stopped their education in the middle. And this one mom, she put it to me. She said, look, Andre, I have a fifth grader in my living room who is going to school, and I'm her teacher. I have a third grader, and I have the newborn, and I'm working nights. I just don't have the space. I don't have the bandwidth to go to school right now, but I'll be back. And I took from that, like, wow, the efforts that students, the things the students have going on that keep them busy, that the other draws on their time and attention, and then to see these resources that you guys are utilizing for your students to help them feel connected, especially so early in their journey at Gen 101. I would imagine that this all students, I mean, I was the same way as a student. In that first course, I went back to school after being out of school for 19 years. And in that first course, I was like, oh man, I made up my head, I do not belong in this environment. But with these resources and the depths and the links you guys are going through, so happy. Shout out to the Signal messages. I'm happy to hear you using those. I've been preaching that till my throat is sore. We should use the Signals more often, but to see the efforts that Gen 101 is utilizing these resources, trying to reach students in any capacity, is just warming to my heart. I'm happy to see it. I'm happy to be a part of it.
Thank you, Andre. It's interesting because I saw an email I was looking for an older email, and I saw an email from a student, and they thanked me for sending them something that helped, one of the resources that helped them understand something better. And he said, I feel smarter now, right? Because what we have in the course is fantastic, but sometimes people need to hear it a different way, or they need an opportunity to explore something at a pace that's at a time where they're, you know, more rested, less stressed, right? And so, they can just pop open a video or look at a document, or a worksheet that helps them kind of understand SMART goals a little better. That's all we want. We want to help our students feel successful in the classroom, and we want them to believe that they can do it. And I had a real difficult time last week with a student who was really down on herself. She was calling herself names, and I was like, "Hey, you've got to call me right now. This email has me really concerned." And so we talked. I said, "Listen, you got to speak kinder to yourself, And I thought to myself, that's one of the things that we need to create in our OER materials as well, is some of these confidence building resources, because our students beat themselves up. When you're dealing with open access students, they beat themselves up. And she wrote in her note, she says, if my instructor believed in me and she showed me that I'm not the bad person I thought I was. And I was like, oh my gosh, because the conversation I had with my husband was, I'm going to go find this. She's not that far from me. I need to go and just shake some love into her, and she said, but I poured into my children. And I was like, well, I need to pour it into you because you are doing the good work. And so we have to find ways to do that, because we can't do that with every student, right? We can't. And so one of the ways we can do that is through our resources. And I think so thank you, Andre. We appreciate you, and we do love the Signals resources. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Kira. Yes. So it's about 1:44. If there aren't any other questions, we're happy to give you back 15 minutes of your day during this busy holiday season. We thank you all for joining us. And Dr. Washington has put the link in. We hope you will join us at ADEIL. It is a wonderful organization. We have some of the original founder, with Dr. Smith is an original founder of that organization in our room today. And we're just so proud to have him, pleased to have him here. Do you want to say anything, Evan, while you're here, when you have a few minutes? Not to put you on the spot.
Oh, hello. Sure. Well, I'm glad to be here. I did retire several years ago, but I still stay active in ADEIL. I'm not on the board anymore. I do have a research grant, and someone finally applied for that and won it. I'm glad to know about OER because it was barely underway when I was still in the workforce. I'm glad it's still going and going strong.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Smith. And for those of you all who are interested in attending, there is something called Open Ed Conference. And it's in November, early November, and I will put the link in there. They have an amazing online option. So I'll put this link in the chat for you all, because it's nice to kind of understand that OER is not new, but when you think about the connection between the online learning environment, it is fairly new. UAGC is pioneering some things around OER, and we have a textbook for one of our courses. Gen 104 has a textbook that's coming out. So we are just really getting behind this and really finding it as a tool to support our students, and we encourage others to do the same. So thank you for having us, and thank you for joining us today.
Great presentation. Thank you all.
Thank you.